الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala we will start with the dars of Tafseer from Surah Qaf and inshallah ta'ala till the end of the Mus'haf. And the objective of this dars inshallah ta'ala is to go through the Tafseer of the ayat brief from Tafseer of Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah. So the goal of it is to study it and to know the meanings of the verses according to what's mentioned in this tafsir. So this is a beginning level. The objective of it is not to be among those who would make tafsir of the Quran, but just to go through the meanings of the verses in a easy and a general and a entry level without going into the deep details of matters of tafsir and aqwal and quotes from the early generations of Islam or linguistics and what every word means linguistically and how it's used in the Quran. This is not the goal of it. This is just to be brief, inshallah ta'ala. And it's important to observe the levels of seeking knowledge and to be patient and not to be in haste. A person definitely especially with the Quran, you want to know more and more, but to be patient with oneself, to adhere to what is the way, inshallah ta'ala. So that's why also the questions at the end should be related to what we are studying, not getting into the deep details of things linguistically and things of that nature. And there is ulum al-Quran, the sciences of the Quran. Also, this is not the subject that we're going to go through the sciences of the Quran and the Nazakh wal Mansukh and the Makki versus the Madani and the characteristics and things of that nature. Just very simple objectives, inshallah ta'ala, that we need to be upon. And the exams on a weekly basis will be basically upon these things. And whoever wants to attend, of course, this is for everyone. And inshallah, everyone also can listen to it in any place. It doesn't have to be only for those who are registered. But those who are registered will take the exams, inshallah. So first of all, we need to make sure that we recite the ayat correctly. And that requires, in these sessions, I'll recite and recite after me, but this is half of the way. Something else needs to be done in which you have to recite it and someone has to correct you. So whether those who are present physically will have groups later, inshallah ta'ala, for people to make sure that they recite the verses correctly to one another. And then once this is clear, we'll try to, not necessarily every day, but we'll introduce some qawa'id, very simple principles of tajweed, to make sure that we recite the ayat correctly, and we need to memorize it. For those who register, inshallah ta'ala, we will memorize the verses that we go through every day when it comes to the tafsir. So if we finish the tafsir of the ayah, that means this ayah we need to memorize it, and it's on a daily basis. And as we said, this is something that we need to put effort in. There will be always every day, inshallah ta'ala, these verses to memorize. And there's a hadith a day to be memorized, and the hadith will be mentioned later tonight, inshallah, after Maghrib. Tonight is the fiqh session. So the fiqh session will be explained, and within the fiqh session, this hadith from the hadith booklet that we have will be pointed. For example, memorize this hadith number such and such from the PDF that has been given to you. So this will be the hadith of the day and the verses of the day in the morning. So to recite the verses perfectly, inshallah, and people are in levels, and we recognize this, of course. So as long as it's progress from each person according to their level, this is, mashallah, you get an A in the course, meaning that it's not expected that everybody will be in the same level. So we do the best we can. This is an act of ibadah. As we said, al-ilmu ibadah, and we need to apply what we mentioned before. So this is an act of ibadah. So we seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in perfecting the recitation of the verses, to memorize it right, as we heard in the books before that we studied, to make sure that you don't memorize something unless you perfectly reciting it and it's approved by your teacher or by the one that you will be given, whether even we'll do the best we can. And it's the same thing for the sisters, inshallah ta'ala, to make sure that it's recited correctly, and then you memorize it with whatever is mentioned of tajweed. I'll tell you, for example, this is what we need to remember of this principle or this qaida or this benefit of tajweed. And then the tafsir. The tafsir is whatever is in the book. Anything more than that will be just not too much, inshallah ta'ala, with matters of tafsir. And again, especially with linguistics and things like this, we're not going to go through it. And even maybe not, it depends with asbab al-nuzul and the like of this. One of the things also that will be, and I hope that you're making also notes of this, because this is something that we should apply in other surahs, when it comes to the virtue or the hadith that are mentioned with regards to every surah, without having to memorizing it. If you want to, mashallah, this is great. Because every time we study something of the Quran, we have the general virtue of the Quran that we have to remember at all times. You don't need to have a surah with a specific hadith that shows the virtue of that surah. Any surah in the Quran, you open and you read, even if there's no specific hadith about the virtue of the surah, whoever reads it, he will get this or that. It is sufficient that this is the Quran, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every surah in the Quran has this great virtue that nothing of the speech of the human being is the like of it. So there's nothing better than the Quran, the speech of Allah, which also the importance of the Aqidah, and this will be in the Aqidah session. Everything in the deen is all together. The Aqidah that this Quran is the exact speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the miraculous speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Plus, if there is specific rewards for reciting specific surahs, or the Prophet ﷺ would specifically recite them frequently, or things of that nature. One of which is Surah Qaf. Why do we start with Surah Qaf? This is called Hizb al-Mufassal. Hizb al-Mufassal. And Hizb al-Mufassal is from Qaf, or some said from Al-Hujurat, which is the previous surah. Right? So either from the Hujurat till the end, or from Qaf to the end. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكُلَّ شَيْءٍ فَصَّلْنَاهُ تَفْصِيلًا. That means there's details in this part of the Quran, and there's no like of it also in the previous books as it's mentioned. But the significance, or the main thing about Hizb al-Mufassal, that most of it is Makki surahs, of course, but because the Prophet ﷺ used to recite in the salawat most of the time from Hizb al-Mufassal. Most of the Quran that the Prophet ﷺ recites in the salah, Fajr, Maghrib, and Isha, from Hizb al-Mufassal, from Qaf to the end. So this is also good for us to memorize these surahs and to use it in our salah. And it doesn't mean that the Prophet ﷺ would not recite from other surahs, like in Surah Al-Fajr, he recited Surah Al-Mu'minun, till what's mentioned about Musa alayhi salam, and Surah Al-A'raf, he recited it in in Surah Al-Maghrib, and many things like this, Surah Yusuf, Surah Al-Nahl. So any surah of the Quran we can use in the salah. We don't have to finish the entire surah, but it's from the way of the Prophet ﷺ, meaning that most of the time, the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he would recite a surah, he would finish it in the salah. He would finish the surah most of the time. But again, it's fine for someone to take some verses here and there. And that's why from Al-Mufassal, Salatul Fajr, he would recite from the long surahs of Al-Mufassal, like the beginning of the surahs of from Hizb al-Mufassal. And in Maghrib, from the short surahs of the Mufassal, but it doesn't have to be only that. Again, I'm just want to make sure that this is clear. And from Salatul Isha, Awasat al-Mufassal, the middle surahs of al-Mufassal, and we'll talk about that also in some details, inshallah ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ used to recite Surah Qaf, as it's reported by Imam Muslim and others, especially in Salat al-Eid, Eid al-Fitr, and Eid al-Adha. The Prophet ﷺ would recite Surah Qaf and Surah Al-Qamar. Surah Qaf in the first rak'ah, and Surah Al-Qamar in the second rak'ah. And also the hadith in Sahih Muslim and others, that the Prophet ﷺ would recite Surah Qaf on the mimbar in the day of Jumu'ah. And as Hisham bint Haritha ibn al-Nu'man, and this is not in the Tafsir al-Sa'di, but it's important, before every surah we get to know these brief information about the surah. She said, ما حفظت قاف إلا من في رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخطب بها كل جمعة. I did not memorize Surah Qaf except from the mouth of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. يخطب بها, he gave khutbah with Surah Qaf every Jumu'ah. So the Prophet ﷺ would get on the minbar, khutbah al-Jumu'ah is Surah Qaf. So this is also to show the importance of Surah Qaf, because of the what Surah Qaf mentions, with the great meanings that are mentioned with the resurrection and death, and the very strong admonitions, and the things for people to be upon. And that's why the ulama, they say it's mustahab to recite some of it or all of it in Jumu'ah. But of course, the purpose of that is not just the barakah of the recitation, but people to understand what is being said. And that's also one of the objectives, to understand the Quran and to relate to the Quran when we hear it, has a great effect. Whoever attended Jumu'ah khutbahs where the Imam just recites Surah Qaf on the minbar, because this is something the Prophet ﷺ did, has a great effect to the heart. When a person is in Jumu'ah listening to the surah when it's recited in Khutbatul Jumu'ah. And many virtues again of the surah. We'll start inshallah ta'ala with the beginning of it, and every surah we recite, we start with al-isti'adha, whether it's from the beginning of the surah or from the middle of the surah. Because of the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. Seek refuge in Allah from the evil shaitan. And why specifically before reading Quran? Shaitan is with the people at all times, but he is with those who recite the Quran the most, because this is the most virtue, the most important thing for a person to be upon. So he will try to get you to be distracted from it. So we start the recitation by saying أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. And you can add to it أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. And you can add to it أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم من همزه ونفخه ونفثه. And we'll talk about the isti'adha later also, inshallah ta'ala. Everything can have so much details in it. Again, we observe this, inshallah. And then Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is before every surah. Before you start the surah from the beginning, there is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is written in the Mus'haf, and this is how the Mus'haf of Uthman radiallahu anhu, when they wrote this, how they took it from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. They would know the beginning of the surah by the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If he doesn't say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, that means it's not the beginning of the surah. So if you read from the middle of the surah, you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-Rajim, and then you read. But if you read from the beginning of the surah, you say A'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-Rajim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. If someone says Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in the middle of the surah, there is no harm. And actually, this is even the ulama of the qira'at, they mention this. So it's not like a bid'ah or anything, but it's more perfect if you want to recite. It's sufficient to say A'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-Rajim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, because it's the beginning of the surah. Except Surah At-Tawbah, there is no Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in it, either because it's Surah Al-Anfal and At-Tawbah one surah, or because of the subject of Surah At-Tawbah, which is, the less of the mercy, it's more of the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and there's the proper way of saying it also, inshallah. But this also will, since it's repeated all the time, so we'll train on that one, inshallah ta'ala. So when you recite, inshallah ta'ala, Saturday, with the ayat that we take from today, inshallah ta'ala, till Friday, inshallah ta'ala, you have to say A'udhu billahi minash shaitan ar-Rajim. This every time you recite to whoever you're reciting to. And then here we'll say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, because we're starting from the beginning of the surah. And the test and the memorization is not going to be tested, but you're just going to recite what you memorized. That means from the beginning to the end of the week, and we'll have a system of reviewing, inshallah ta'ala. This is ibadah. So don't say it's overwhelming, it's too much, I'm not going to do this. Have a portion of the day and do the best you can, inshallah. Even if you think that you're having weaknesses in memorization, do the best you can, inshallah. And it's only simple verses every day. So we start with the al-isti'adha. And by the way, we'll finish, inshallah, at 7:15, as we all know. So we don't have to go through specific verses, inshallah, in the beginning, till we get used to how the dars will be, inshallah. So repeat after me, inshallah ta'ala. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. The first rule that we'll learn today, inshallah ta'ala, is al-kasra, which is a very simple rule. Kasra, any letter that has a kasra, you know the kasra, which is the small thingy underneath the letter, which gives you the E sound. So make the E sound, E sound. So أعوذ بي أعوذ بالله من الشيطان من الشيطان الرجيم and the right heavy. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. And the things that's going to be repeated, and those who are with us in other durus of the Quran, be patient with, keep on being corrected with how to pronounce things. And we can take every letter and spend so much time, but this is, since inshallah will be done on a daily basis, so it will get easier inshallah ta'ala. So when you say Bismillahir, Ra is heavy. Bismillahir Rah, and the ha with sukun, air comes out. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. We'll take the first ayah and then we go through the tafsir of it, and if we have time, we'll go to the next one, inshallah. Qaf. This is the letter Qaf. We don't say the sound of it, we say the letter. Qaf. Qaf, and Alif, and Fa. And there's a med, so we take it, we give it 6 counts. The meaning of 6 counts is just to make it easy. So it's a longer med than the normal one, and we'll talk about the different madud, but when it comes, inshallah ta'ala. So the med here is 6 counts. To make it easy, it's a little bit longer, as if you're counting to 6, as if to make it easy. This is not a must. This is no evidence of these types of things. It's just a way for the ulama when they put, so that people get used to it, and then that's it. Not every time they have to do these types of things when they're reading Quran, but as if you're counting 6 with your hands, like folding every finger like this. So when you say Qaf, say count 6. So when you're reciting, inshallah, don't make it, don't say Qaf. No, now we get to know that it's a longer med, and don't make it too long, so you get used to the amount of med here. It doesn't have to be exactly precise, but it's a long med. And we're not going to what is the name of this med and the categories of it at this stage, inshallah. So after saying, and then with the fa at the end, when you say fa, as they say when you teach Arabic, even for the beginners, if it's already known, you don't have to mention the principle behind it and the rule and things like this, unless it's something difficult. But the fa is from the huruf of the hams, where air comes out, but not in an extreme way. So again, one last time. Qaf. So when you stop, don't say qaf. Qaf. Where the qaf comes from? The back, right? Qa, not ka. So, right, to make it heavy, and the mouth is like this. وَالْقُرْآنِ الْمَجِيدِ. وَالْقُرْآنِ الْمَجِيدِ. The ra is heavy. The ra is heavy because before it there is qaf, and we'll get to know the rule later, inshallah. But you say wal Quran every time you say the Quran. The ra is heavy, and of course the qaf is heavy. Wal Quran, and the hamza and the alif noon after it is light. Al Majid, the jim, right? And hopefully people here don't have some parts of the word the jim. They say ji. And it's called the air comes out. No, it's supposed to be tough. Al majj, ajja, from the middle of the mouth, of the tongue. So al majid, and then the dal at the end with qalqala. If we stop, so you kind of move it as if it has a very tiny fatha. It doesn't have fatha, of course, because you stop at a sukoon. Every time you stop at a sukoon. But to move it, a slight move. So, وَالْقُرْآنِ الْمَجِيدِ. والقرآن المجيد. Qaf, it's a letter, like the surahs that starts with letter. Some of it, they start with 3 letters, 4 letters, 1 letter. So this is, or 2 letters like Hamim, and this is 1 letter, like Noon. Qaf is 1 letter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best what's the meaning of it. And that's the thing that we'll take now, inshallah. Allah knows best what's the meaning of saying Qaf. Of course, this is a letter. Right? So letters usually don't have a meaning to it. It's a letter. So when we say Allah knows best what's the meaning of it, if there is a meaning to it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Qaf, there's a meaning, Allah knows best. And He subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, and it's a challenge to the people. Quran is in the Arabic language. So Qaf, and then Wal Quran al Majid. Wal Quran al Majid, the waw here, when you translate the ayah, right, it says Qaf, and then, and none but Allah knows, no, I'm sorry, by the glorious Quran. By the glorious Quran, that means this is a swear, qasam. Wal Quran al Majid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making qasam, is swearing by the Quran. And the waw here, this is waw al qasam. This is how the qasam is. Wallahi, when you say wallahi, is like you're saying by Allah. You're not saying and Allah, you're saying by Allah. So this is called waw al qasam. Wal Quran, al Quran al Majid, which is the glorious Quran. Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by al-Quran al-Majid, swearing by the Quran al-Majid. And the Quran is one of the attributes of Allah, the speech of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears in the Quran by His creation, which is not permissible for the human beings to swear by other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it's one of the attributes of Allah, it's permissible. So when you say by Allah, or by the most merciful, by the Al-Aziz, this is okay, because these are attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran is one of the attributes of Allah. So if someone swears by the Quran, this is fine, because this is not a creation of Allah. It's forbidden to swear by the creation of Allah. But to swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or one of His attributes, this is halal, this is permissible. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is swearing by Al-Quran Al-Majid. What Al-Majid? Ay wasi' al-ma'ani wa 'azimiha. Something that is so spacious in its meanings. We're not going to go to the linguistics of things, even though it's good. But Al-Majid, Al-Majd, something that is, whether it's used to be honor or here, but here means the great meanings in it. Ay wasi' al-ma'ani 'azimiha. Great meanings from the Quran. This is one meaning he says. Wasi' al-ma'ani, from wasi', from great meaning, spacious meanings. Kathir al-wujuh, many meanings, many things. You won't get enough, basically, when you go through the tafsir of the Quran. If you're the best scholar in the world and you have 100 years studying the Quran, it never ends. The ajaib and the amazing things of the Quran never ends, because this is the speech of Allah. Nothing is the like of it. So the second meaning here mentioned, that it's kathir al-wujuh. Al-wujuh is the plural of wajh, face. It does not mean face here, meaning that it has many different meanings that comes from the Quran. Kathir al-barakat, great, many barakat, many blessings. And jazir al-mabarrat, but this is sufficient, meaning all kinds of virtue is in the Quran. And more than that. So, wal-Quran al-Majid. So the great in meanings, lots of meanings, lots of barakat and blessings, and all kinds of righteousness in it. And then he says, wal Majd. What's al Majd? Al Majid comes from al Majd. What's al Majd? Si'atul awsafi wa 'azamatuha. The spaciousness of the characteristics and the greatness of it. So two things: si'a, the spaciousness of meanings, that the word is not tiny or tight in meaning. It's very spacious. And that's why the Quran, the verse can give so many meanings, right? And this is part of the miraculous thing of the Quran. When it comes to the ahkam, actions, and aqidah, and so on, we make the spaciousness of the meanings explained in the light of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or the Quran itself, or the statements of the Sahaba, and so on. So سعة الأوصاف وعظمتها. Two things: the سعة, spaciousness, and the exaltation of it. The سعة, because something is spacious is not necessarily anything of goodness. That's why the عظمة, the exaltation of the Quran, both qualities can come into the meaning of al-Majd. And the وأحق كلام يوصف بهذا هو القرآن. There's nothing more to be described in such a way than the Quran. Nothing is the like the Quran, and that's one of the characteristics of the Quran, that whoever again studies the Quran, he would see that clearly. And that's why those who are in doubt, or those who are weak in their iman, they don't know they did not study the book of Allah, because there's no like of it on the face of earth. How would you know that? When you study it, you would see, even when it comes to the meanings of the Quran. So the Quran has the knowledge of the past and the future and everything, that has the perfect fasaha and the perfect eloquent in speech, and use the best, as he says, the fasaha is what words to be used in what context, and the best words and the best places for every word. If one word is changed or replaced by another word that means exactly the same thing, it won't give the same meaning in the perfect sense, and the many different meanings that the Quran comes with. Even if the structure of the sentence is changed according to the words of the human beings, that's not the same with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's miraculous the way it is. And any small change in it, it takes away the miraculous nature of the Quran, of course, because this is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when it comes to the fasaha, the eloquence in speech, when it comes to the words, the best and the most strongest words, and when it comes to the meanings, it's the most general, the most spacious, the most beautiful words, most beautiful meanings are mentioned in the Quran, and that makes the person then by necessity has to follow the Quran. So three things here he mentioned when it comes to the Quran, when it comes to the language of the Quran: al-fasaha, the linguistics and the strength of it, which is a miraculous thing in itself, and the words, the best words and the strongest words, and so on, and the meanings. So the eloquency of the speech and the words and the meanings, all of that to be applied with it, al-Majid, the most spacious, and Azama, al-Sa'a wal-Azama, the spaciousness and the greatness and exaltation of what the Quran is mentioned. In these three things, and whoever studies more, he would see how it is in the how eloquent in speech it is, and how every word is. And that's why this is all studies of the Quran, word by word, not the way that we do it word by word, like this simple. No, it's again more extensive than that. And also when it comes to the meaning, all of these things, what's the benefit of it? So that people then, the more they study it, the more they would follow the Quran, and وَسُرْعَةُ الْإِنْقِيَادِ لَهُ, and they would be in haste to submit themselves to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is the Quran that we are commanded to follow. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is able to do all things, and He commanded us to follow the best speech, which is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran. So we mentioned three things, and the last three things here is, as a result of that meaning, what's the benefit? What's the benefit of Quran al-Majid? And we won't get this in every verse mentioned here in the tafsir. Of course, there's benefit in every verse. But since we're following that book, he mentioned here three benefits as a result of saying Quran al-Majid. That makes a person follow the Quran, makes it by necessity you need to follow the Quran, and the surah, to in haste to submit yourself to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And number three, to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He bestowed upon us this ni'mah, that it's Quran Majid, and the book is praising the Quran. The book is being praised. Where is that on the face of earth where a book is praised in such a way to challenge humanity to bring the like of it? This is Qaf wal Quran al Majid. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. We'll recite it inshallah ta'ala, and that's why we'll just take two verses inshallah. So recite after me. بل عجبوا أن جاءهم بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب فقال الكافرون هذا فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. Many rulings are being observed here, but we don't have to worry about it, inshallah. If you don't know it, it's easy, inshallah. So as long as you at least you say it to the best of your ability at that stage. بل عجبوا 4 to 5 counts and talk about that later, but say it anja, anja, and then 2 counts, so you stay there for a little bit. Then another mad جاءهم, and then 2 memes together جاءهم من, another إخفاء منذر منهم فقال, there's no one here, فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب هذا شيء عجيب. You don't make غنة there. And we'll whoever wants to read inshallah after 5 minutes, I won't choose so that nobody put on the spot, but whoever wants to read will do that inshallah. So بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. Nay, they wonder that there has come to them a warner from among themselves, so the disbelievers say this is a strange thing. So after what's mentioned in Al-Quran al-Majid, Imam Sa'di rahimahullah says, but most people, they don't appreciate the favors of Allah. They don't recognize the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as favors. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلْ عَجِبُوا. They're ajibu, meaning amazed, in a way that they are denying the truth. And جَاءَهُمْ مُنذِرٌ مِّنْهُمْ. It's a strange thing for them. That a mundir, a warner, came from them. This is something that they consider to be something very strange. بَلْ عَجِبُوا أَنْ جَاءَهُمْ مُنذِرٌ مِّنْهُمْ, to warn them. And this is, the mundir here is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And mundir, warning, he's a warner, warning them of what's harmful for them. And he commands them to what's benefiting to them. And he's from among them. They could see him and they could talk to him and they would see his affairs and how truthful he is. But what happened? تعجبوا من, this was a strange thing for them, as they claimed, which is something that is no strange thing, that is not strange whatsoever. But actually, it's what's strange is for those who claim that this is strange. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَقَالَ الْكَافِرُونَ, so the disbelievers, they said, هَذَا شَيْءٌ عَجِيب. This is عجيب, something strange, something new to them. And 2 things here when it comes to this statement from them. He says, either they are truthful in saying that this is something ajib, this is something strange. And if they're truthful in their saying, that shows how ignorant they are and how weak in their intellect and reason. It's like someone that is insane. When someone is insane, he's saying about the words of someone that is sane, or that's a strange thing. That's exactly in the same level. And it's like the example of someone that is a coward, and he is saying that the bravery of those who are brave is a strange thing. People always have this ideas of what's strange to them if they're not upon it. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. So someone that is a coward, he would see someone brave as it's a very strange thing. Or someone insane, he would see someone wise, it's a very strange thing what he's saying, and things like this. And he mentioned another example, and it's like when someone is greedy, and he would say and consider those who are generous, this is a very strange thing in a negative way, right? So this is what they said. So is there any harm that would afflict the person that people are estranged from or something like this? Nothing whatsoever. This is nothing but an evidence of how they ignorant they are and how unjust they are. So this is if they are truthful in what they're saying, that this is something strange to us or something weird or whatever there is. And if they were lying in saying this, then of course this is a very obvious thing that they're lying, and they know that this is, which is the second case is what is right, because it's very obvious to them that the Quran is something that they've never heard the like of it before, when they had this perfect way of articulating themselves, and the language was very strong, and it's preserved till our day today, what the Arabs used to speak and how they used to speak, and their poetry and their nathra, the things that their letters, all of that is preserved. No nation is like this, that you would find over 1400 years ago. Their literature is preserved in such a way, in such a language that can be understood today, and it's very strong on how they have it in a very strong way. And then in that environment, the Quran was revealed. So that means they're lying, they're rejecting the truth, and this is basically what it means. But this is the two possibilities when they would say such a thing. بَالْعَجِبُوا أَنْ جَاءَهُمْ مُنذِرٌ مِّنْهُمْ, and he is from them, and he, of course, we know the characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ and how they used to call the Prophet ﷺ, that he's trustworthy, that he is a truthful one. And of course, the ajab here, or what's strange to them when it comes to the resurrection and the hereafter, because the Prophet ﷺ was warning them, if they don't believe, they will be in hellfire. As the resurrection after death is the day of judgment, and in the day of judgment people will be judged. So they denied the day of judgment. So this is what they said, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers their false claim afterwards. But this is basically what the verse says. So we'll stop here, inshallah, but with reciting it again. بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. We'll recite it together, inshallah, 3 times. These 2 verses, inshallah, from Qaf. Say it together. Qaf wal Qur'an. We'll say it together, inshallah. Qaf wal Qur'anil Majid. بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. Again. قاف والقرآن المجيد بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. One more time. قاف والقرآن المجيد بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب. Good. So as long as we don't have major mistakes in what we're reciting, we're good, inshallah. Even with the tajweed, step by step, inshallah. This can be always corrected. But if we recite something wrong in a letter or tashkil or something like this, then we should not memorize it till we perfect the recitation of it, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. وصلى الله وسلم على محمد وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.